So we've had reasons for the call-in. I think now's the appropriate time, before we lay out the options to the panel, I think now's the appropriate time to invite those members. Sorry.
The representative from Rag Lawrence Graham said all members would be provided with a paper. Well, my officer haven't seen any paper.
Come off it.
Has members...
Are you referring to this one that you gave me half an hour ago?
Please.
No, that wasn't a spurious question. I wasn't being sarcastic then. Because it reads here, Manston Airport proposing indemnity in relation to its circular requirements. Not this paper? Okay. Not this paper.
They disappeared.
Thank you, Leader.
Look,
there is that paper.
Put your mic on.
Put your mic on.
I'm quite happy for Claire Fielding to confirm that, but when she was sat up here, she'd actually say that she had provided members with a shortened version of that paper. And the question really is very simple, is that how many members have had that shortened version and how many haven't? Because I certainly haven't seen it.
You're doing your trick.
Can I ask a show of hands for those that have seen that shortened paper?
It's only 3. So who had it?
Oh,
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, can we... Councillor Parton seems to be suggesting that everybody has seen this shortened paper, not the original, shortened paper. Could you clarify that?
Oh, change your mind.
Unfortunately, I haven't got my email account in front of me, but that, as I recall, it was sent to all members. I'd say about 2 or 3 weeks ago. John's just about to bring it up. It was sent to all members.
You need to read, yeah.
Another non-event.
Can we move on to council members who wish to speak under 24.1, and I would invite Councillor Ashby. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is following on really from the issue regarding the late issuance of paperwork to the members. And it is important to establish whether the meeting and decision on Thursday the 29th of October was admissible within the Constitution and legislation. When questioning both during the meeting and in emails after the meeting, the monitoring officer said that the release of the report on Tuesday the 27th of October, just 2 days before the meeting, was lawful. And to the Constitution 5.0, access to agenda and reports before the meeting. 5b states, where an item is added to the agenda later, the revised agenda will be published on the Council's website and open to inspection from the time the item was added to the agenda. A supplementary agenda item was added to the TDC website between 12:07 and 12:53 on Tuesday the 27th of October, and the Constitution states 6.1, an item of business may not be considered at a meeting unless either a copy of the agenda including the item or a copy of the item is published on the Council's website and open to inspection by a member of the public for at least 5 clear working days before the meeting, or where the meeting is convened at shorter notice from the time the meeting is convened. As stated above, an agenda item was added with less than 5 clear working days before the meeting. The second exception, B, the reason for special circumstances which shall be specified in the minutes, the chairman of the meeting is of the opinion that the item should be considered at the meeting as a matter of urgency. There have been no special circumstances mentioned in the minutes, so B does not apply. I believe that the inclusion of the supplementary agenda item is just a crude mechanism to deny the public their rights under the Constitution Part 4 Rules of Procedure section 5.0, access to agenda and reports before the meeting. The Council will make copies of the agenda and reports open to the public, available for inspection at the designated office at least 5 clear working days before the meeting, except that there are no exceptions but A, does not apply because the meeting was not convened at shorter notice, and B, was covered above. In light of the above, it would appear that the regulations have not been followed, and I would urge Overview and Scrutiny to look into this matter. I would also like this to be looked at the Constitution Review Working Party, because no decision-making body should be expected to make a decision without receiving all the information for a period at least 3 days, preferably 5 working days, and in the case of a key decision, 28 days before the decision.
Thank you. Would anyone like to respond to that? It's a lot of information there that... No response. Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Chairman and members. It appears, according to the current statutory government acts and the Constitution, that the officer's report submitted for the Cabinet meeting on 29th of October was not given sufficient time between being available and a decision being made. When the officer was questioned on releasing the report with only 2 days' notice, referral was made to the statutory instrument 2012, section 7.4. What this says is that the public cannot have access to the report before the, before the decision-making body, which is common sense. However, 7.4 does not deny the decision-making body, the Cabinet, the right to receive the report with sufficient notice to make an informed and considered decision. The new Council Constitutions, Guidance to English Authorities, 2006, which is statutory, makes it clear in section 7.31 that there must be a minimum of 3 days between any such report being publicly available and a decision being taken. In all of the relevant legislation, there are 3 minimum times stated for reports to be available. 3 days, 5 days, when in the case of a key decision, 28 days. Indeed, in 7.26, the Secretary of State questions whether 3 days is sufficient. 7.27 refers to the very rare circumstances that a figure of less than 3 days is deemed acceptable, and if this is the case, then the decision maker will need to obtain agreement from the Chair of Overview and Scrutiny Committee that the decision could be reasonably regarded as urgent in circumstances. Was agreement obtained from the Chairman of Overview and Scrutiny? If not, then the 3-day rule applies. 7.32 states local authorities should therefore ensure the decisions are taken on the basis of completed reports, which, under the regulations, must be made available to the public at least 3 clear days before the decision is taken. Furthermore, local authorities will need to ensure the circumstances do not arise where a decision is claimed to be necessary under the special urgency provision in Regulation 16, only by a reason of failure to finalise reports in time to allow the normal procedures to be followed. If the officer's report was not produced in time to satisfy the legislation, does that mean that the decision made by Cabinet on Thursday the 29th is invalid? Yes.
Thank you. Monitor Officer would like to make comment.
Thank you, Chairman. Although this isn't actually relevant to the call-in, I just want to clarify a misunderstanding which is easy to make and accept made. There are 2 issues here. One is whether an agenda was published with 5 clear days notice, including the item, and it was. The second is about the delivery of the report. Now, in truth, the report can be late, it's being tabled at the meeting. So the item was on the agenda 5 clear days before the meeting, so we did follow the statutory procedures. The report was late because we were including further information from River Oak, but the answer is we did follow the statutory procedures, we followed them to the letter, and indeed we could have, as I said, we could have delivered that report on the day if necessary, but actually it was on the agenda, was available 5 days before, and it did comply with all the statutory requirements before the committee.
No, we can't have that sort of language from the public gallery. I'm sorry. We just had 2 members raising the same issue, which to me just proves that there hasn't been any collusion between political parties. So now may I ask Councillor Martin. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a concern that looking at the report again, which we received for the 29th of October, there seem to be a number of issues which are raised in that report, which River Oak have not had an opportunity to give some response to. There are statements such as, without going into the detail, on page 6, the Council has seen no evidence that River Oak have the resources now available, and so on. And in the next paragraph, River Oak have provided no evidence during the negotiations of their ability to cover this eventuality, and so on. And I would really like to see an informed point-by-point response from River Oak, which is granted from this chamber by this committee, to hear something in response, as a democratic response, to the statements which are being made. And I think that that response should be a point-by-point response, preferably with a full presentation to the committee and any other members of the council who are invited and choose to attend. Thank you.
Thank you. That may well be something that can be dealt with at a later point, depending on the decision this evening. Thank you. If we can now move on back to the agenda and options for the panel, as has already been raised by Councillor Campbell. Members may wish to note that in addition to the two options highlighted in section 4 of the cover report, the panel can opt to refer the Cabinet decision to full Council for review. So I would suggest that we have a further option when we get to the point, which will read, after having reviewed all of the evidence, do members wish to refer this decision to full Cabinet? Councillor...
Does it mean full council?
Bayford, sorry, full Council.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to explore that possibility a little bit further, because I've heard it suggested that if this committee was to refer this decision to Council, that stops any further debate tonight. It just goes straight there. And that seems perverse to me, because I think that what would be useful is for there to be a bit of a debate and to try and get to the bottom of some of the points of issue that members are concerned about, and at that point to still have access to us, the ability to send it to full council for review before then, I assume, going to Cabinet, because the decision lies with Cabinet in the end.
Thank you, Councillor Bayford. Monitoring Officer.
Yes, the law says that it gives all the functions, particularly about scrutinising decisions, to the Scrutiny Committee, but there is a provision whereby it can essentially upwardly delegate that function, not the decision, but the function, to Council. So if you want to delegate the function to Council, clearly it's something the Scrutiny could do now, but it would be inappropriate to scrutinise it twice. So you either exercise your power here, which is the appropriate to do, or alternatively, you can delegate that function to Council to exercise your scrutiny powers. There's no provision to scrutinise it twice.
That's rubbish.
Making up these rules?
Yes.
So at that point, having heard that, I need to ask, do you prefer to debate it at this meeting and therefore want to comment, seek points of clarification, or ask questions in response to the submission made? Can I have a show? Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, whilst I haven't got a copy of the Constitution on me, paragraph 15, section F of call-in procedure, I think states within one paragraph that the Scrutiny Committee has the ability to decide to refer the issue back to the Cabinet or to full Council.
Yes.
It doesn't. Yes. It actually doesn't, in my recollection, make the statement that's just been made by the monitoring officer. I may be wrong because I haven't got a copy of the Constitution in front of me, but I have been looking at it.
Monitoring officer to comment.
Can I just, perhaps if I could just read it. Yeah? If having considered the decision, the panel is still concerned about it, then it may refer it back to decision-making body or body for reconsideration, setting out in writing the nature of the concerns, or refer the matter to full council. If referred to the decision maker, then they shall reconsider within 15 working days from that date of the meeting, attending the decision or not, before adopting a final decision. It seems to me that after debate here, what that would mean was that after discussion and debate here on the relevant topics that is allowed within the agenda, this committee could either refer the matter, if it chooses, refer the matter back to the decision-making body, which was Cabinet in this case, or to full council. It doesn't actually state that there is no provision for the two-stage scrutiny and that the decision has to be made before any debate is taken.
Exactly.
Mr. Hawes.
Can I clarify on behalf of the committee what the law says? The law says that the power of an overview and scrutiny committee to review or scrutinise a decision made but not implemented includes power to recommend that the decision be reconsidered by the person who made it, that is Cabinet in this instance, or to arrange for its function, so far as it relates to the decision, to be exercised by the authority. So there's a choice. You either consider it here and make recommendations to Cabinet, or you refer your functions to full council.
Read it.
Illegal. Councillor Campbell again.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's not reflected in our current constitution. No. However, I mean, if that is, obviously, if that's a legal judgment, then that overrides our constitution, which is therefore remiss. Are we stating now that our constitution is remiss in actually stating what it does state in 15F, and therefore doesn't comply with the law of the land? If that's the case, then that's the case. However, our constitution doesn't reflect that.
No, I accept that, and as part of the review of the Constitution, we'll pick that up. But the answer is that it's always been, since the 2000 Act, that's the choice you have. You either pass it, let council do your scrutiny function, or you exercise your scrutiny function. And I don't think people exercise it, not twice.
Any other points on that point?
Yeah.
Councillor Campbell, are you reasonably happy?
I mean, I obviously, the majestic position that I'm in as an elected member of Thanet District Council cannot overturn the law of the land.
Okay.
So, at this point, I do need to ask, do you prefer to debate this evening, or do you want to refer it to full council? Can I have a show of hands, please?
What's the question?
Which one? First of all, do we want to debate it this evening? Show of hands, please, if we wish to debate it this evening at the scrutiny meeting. That's unanimous. So,
Put your mic on.
Sorry, with great respect, Councillor, we do have a member office protocol which explains quite clearly and quite straightforward how we address officers and how we address members, particularly how you address issues when you're criticising officers. I would suggest after this meeting you go home and read that in some detail, and I'll pick it up with you later.
Santos.
right, so panel have agreed unanimously to debate the issue in scrutiny this evening, so I can open up the debate to panel members. Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to kick it off, before we start, I'd like to state that I'm disappointed that Councillor Crowe-Brown is in attendance. For a particular reason, is that the decision was taken by Cabinet. It wasn't unanimous. He was the only Cabinet member who actually voted against the other Cabinet members. And so unfortunately, he's not here this evening, because I would like to have asked him why, in his opinion, River Oak, in his determination, River Oak were a suitably qualified indemnity partner, because that was the conclusion of his voting on that night. So it's unfortunate. I'd like him monitored that he's not present to actually ask that question.
Thank you. As we go around members who have points to raise, and particularly when officers give their response if I can again ask the members of the public gallery to remain as silent as possibly. I don't want to take any action, and I appreciate the passion that's in the room, but we do need to get this meeting conducted in an orderly fashion. So, Councillor Bayford.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'd like to follow up on a point that's already been raised, which concerns the assertion that River Oak haven't demonstrated that they would have the ability to raise sufficient funds to take the whole project through to a thriving airport at the end of the day. It seems to me that they've already showed considerable good faith by depositing $2 million into their lawyer's client account, and I understand that that's been raised through a number of investment partners, and I think they've been pretty explicit in describing how they go about their business, which is to identify a project and then seek to find investment partners to bring that to fruition, and they have a track record of doing that. There's been also, it seems to me, some confusion about the necessity for a bond and whether or not River Oak made an offer of a bond which was then withdrawn, because it doesn't seem to me to be particularly necessary at this stage. If River Oak are actually funding everything up to the CPO process and completely indemnifying the council financially up to that point, then the concern comes about the ability to find the money to actually pay for the airport should the CPO be successful. And it seems to me that it isn't until you get to that point that potentially there could be any need for a bond, which would be to make up any shortfall between what the best estimate or guesstimate of what the compensation for the airport is going to be and what it might land up being. So I'd like to have some clarification as to why they're deemed to not appear to be financially able to meet the commitment.
Thank you, Chair. If I can respond to that point. Yes, the report is pretty comprehensive on that point. No doubt you've read the report. It's based on advice from council and advice from external solicitors, and it's pretty unequivocal on that point. And I can add nothing further than what's said in the report. We're not here today to remake the decision. We're here to look at the grounds for the call-in, which is about the report maybe read as being loaded, as I understand it.
Thank you. And can I amplify that? If I go back to my original preamble, we're here to review the decision-making process, and to the best of my knowledge, the mention of bond within the report did not influence the decision-making process, and at one point it was mentioned that it was a movement forward from a position that we had earlier in the year. Councillor Baker, did you want to return?
Well, yeah, I did, Chairman, really, because, I thought that the purpose of this meeting really was to investigate those areas of the report where members maybe considered that the report was a little bit one-sided, and there is an alternative view as to how you go about funding the CPO and what the requirements should be, but no consideration has been given to that, and basically all we're getting is well, I'll put it in the report and that's good enough for you. I mean, what we're really here tonight to talk about is if that report is in any way incomplete, inaccurate, one-sided, or whatever, and I think in that particular instance there is certainly room for some kind of discussion about, who said what to whom and when. And if we're going to spend the evening every time a member raises a point, just sort of, well, and you did, I thought rather rude, you said you assumed I'd read the report. In the same way that you choked off the councillor earlier on, I don't actually think that that's a reasonable way for you to talk to me. I do read the reports, and I have read this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points. The call-in obviously states that although the report is well presented, in the opinion of a significant number of members of this committee, the report may be read as being loaded to achieve the outcome. Well, they've obviously had in mind instances within the report which they perceive to be loaded. Perhaps those members would like to elucidate what those are, where those opinions are, where the report is loaded. Then we can actually discuss that particular situation. I also believe as well that, and I'd like to ask this of the leader, in respect of the financial position of Libero, I understand that prior to, or at least in parallel with, the CPO process, this council must enter into negotiations with the current owners of the site to actually buy the site outside of the CPO process. Now, to actually prove to, if they refuse, or if that process is still ongoing when if we enact a CPO, the inspector must look at, does the inspector look at the council and decide whether or not this council has the financial wherewithal to actually buy the airport and the site, yeah? If serious and has the actual financial backing, or an indemnity partner that currently has the financial backing, should the owner decide to sell the site outside of the CPO. If not, will the inspector therefore decide that the TDC's offer to buy the airport was frivolous and spurious, but didn't have the necessary finances if the owners of the airport agreed to sell it to them?
There seems to me to be two issues there, if I may say so, that are interrelated but not necessarily the same thing. The first issue is that it's certainly quite clear that it is best practice and expected that the acquiring authority will make an offer to buy before embarking upon the CPO process, and in doing so, this council took the view that it had to be clear that we've had no secret from the beginning that this council does not have the money to undertake that purchase directly itself. That's why it wants an indemnity partner, and that's why splitting this down into separated stages is a bit of a misnomer, because actually what we're about from the very beginning is looking towards achieving a working airport. If you're looking towards achieving a working airport, you haven't got the money to do it, you need the indemnity partner to do it, and therefore the indemnity partner has to prove that they have the ability to pay the bills at the appropriate moments in the process. Deep breath, right? And there was no ability shown to us that Libero could provide that money up front in the event of us going to make that offer as required to do so by the government circular, and in doing that we clearly had a huge risk. And that huge risk was that we may find ourselves having an offer accepted and not having the money to move it forward. Now, I am not clear, because I'm not a legal expert, on how that translates into the planning inspector later on. But it's quite clear to me that if we are required by the process to make an offer up front and we don't have the money and the indemnity partner is supposed to provide the money, there should be a process by which they provide the money at that point if it is required. And that process was never part of the negotiation.
Councillor Campbell wants a return.
Just on that point, it is the case, or is it the case, that if the council were to proceed with a CPO, and if that CPO were to be successful, then there is a 3-year period in which the council can then enact the purchase of the land under the CPO process. However, if you go into private treaty, i.e. the owner decides to sell you the site outside of the CPO process, that 3-year period does not exist. Therefore, the monies would have to have been available up front at that moment of transfer.
No.
The 3 years is a government restriction on the way CPOs are run, and the phrase is up to 3 years rather than 3 years as such. And that is formally part of what is the CPO process. I think with regard to the second half of your question, in a sense it's a bit about how long is a piece of string. Because it really depends on how long the person who is selling you the property is prepared to wait. And I strongly suggest if you get to the point where they're saying they don't want to go through a CPO and the delay in doing that or whatever, they will tend to go to you, all right, you want it? Yeah, you can have it, and you can have it now, and we want the money now. And, you know, you might be able to stretch that a little while, but I'm damn sure you'll be able to stretch that for 3 years.
Thank you. Councillor Curran.
We're here tonight, obviously, to look at the report, which, according to the call-in, is that it is loaded to achieve the outcome. Now, this report is obviously written in conjunction with officers and their legal team. And one of the decisions made by the Cabinet was to rely very heavily on the advice of officers and their appointed legal team. A point clearly made back at the meeting on October the 29th, and I quote, the file on the CPO and indemnity agreement is 3.5 to 4 inches thick, and none of us here, I feel, are fully qualified to read and comprehensively understand on our own to make an informed decision because it's absolutely full of legal jargon. Now, with this in mind, the leader and legal department and the Cabinet hired the independent barrister Guy Williams, the CPO specialist in Landmark Chambers, to give us an in-depth independent advice. And it's upon this advice that I will personally be making my decision. Now, my question is, the appointment of the right legal firm is therefore very important because the Cabinet have been relying on it. Now, to my knowledge, 3 legal firms were approached to work with TDC. Could you explain to everybody who they were and how the decision to appoint the desired legal team came about? But whoever feels that they're in a position to answer that.
Yes, I can advise you. We went through an informal procurement process and got 3 bids, I think it was, from 3 different law firms. I'm not in a position to say who those law firms were, because it would be inappropriate because it's part of the procurement process. And we considered the